I developed a system, the buyer process, a particular process that we like to put all of our buyers through so that when they get to the end of their agreement, they are able to get their own loan. We see success rates of 80 or 90%, up to 90% of our buyers that we set up on rent-to-own agreements get to the end of their agreement and are able to get their own loan. Whereas if you look at the industry average, Axel, it's the opposite of that. Only 10 or 20% of the rent-to-own buyers go forward and get their own loan. And that's because of the systems and the processes that we have in place. And we now partner with our associates that we have all over the country to do these deals. And we're still doing them in the trenches every day.
Hello, and welcome back to the Very Real Estate Effect podcast, a show dedicated to real estate investing right here in Quebec. And yet today, I'm very pleased and honored to have a guest whose last name is absolutely from Quebec in Canada, but yet he's in the US, but it's okay. We still warmly welcome him. I'd like today to introduce Nick Prefontaine. Welcome to the show, man.
I'm still loud. Yeah, I'm still loud. I like to resonate with Canadian audiences and Canadians in general because my great-grandfather immigrated to the U.S. from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. So my name is French Canadian for sure, 100%.
Perfect. So before we jump into it, I just want to remind everyone, thank you for following the show. Share this episode with a friend who could benefit from this conversation because you can help your neighbor, your brother, your friend, your coworker just by sharing this episode so he can listen to it because maybe they've been wanting to invest in real estate, but they just don't know where to start. And this is what this show is about. So share it with a friend who could benefit from this conversation. And I'm also planning my next episodes until the end of the year. So if you have any topics you'd like to hear about, guests you want to suggest, please reach out to me. I'll be happy to do my best to get them on and share their story to inspire all of us. So, Nick, as I always say, how in the world did you get started in real estate investing?
Well, to keep it brief, my answer to that question, how I got started, I always go back to a fateful day in 2003. I was at ski club with my friends, and going to the mountain, we realized that it had been raining. So things we were forecasting or foreseeing that things are going to be kind of icy.
Yeah.
So we got to the mountain, headed straight for the top, and on the chairlift, it went right over the terrain park, Axel. I saw the biggest jump in the terrain park. I was like, oh, I'm definitely going off that. I'm gonna hit that. So
that smells bad.
Yeah, it wasn't our first time around. So we knew what we were doing. So I got to the top, took a breath of that crisp winter air, and confidently charged towards that jump with all my speed. And going into the jump, I caught the edge of my snowboard on the snow going up the jump, and that kind of threw me off balance. And that was the last thing that I remember. So I was told that I landed on my head. I wasn't wearing a helmet.
Oh.
Because of the severity of my injuries, they wanted to bring a helicopter to the mountain to rush me to the hospital. They couldn't because it was too windy, so they had to send in an ambulance. And out of the staff, all the staff in the area, there was only one who could intubate on the spot, and I needed that to be able to breathe. Then once I got to the hospital, I was resting in the intensive care unit. And luckily for me, my parents had the foresight that each time the doctors came into my room to share the not so good and not so good and not so good news, they stopped them right as they walked in. And they said, no, not in front of him. Because they understood that even though I was in a coma, I was still taking in information. Wow. So they made the doctors walk outside the room, and once they got outside my hospital room in the ICU, they explained that, look, he's probably not going to. We don't even know if he's going to come out of his coma, and even if he does, there's a good chance that he probably won't ever walk, talk, or eat on his own.
Jesus.
Like I said, because I wasn't influenced by this, I didn't know any of this. I was in a coma for 3 weeks. I really don't remember a month. After a month, um, once I got up and like could really get my surroundings around me, it just allowed me to treat it like any other situation. So I
Mm-hmm.
got up, did the best that I could, and it kept getting better every day. There was also a system that I unknowingly used to not only make a full recovery but run out of the hospital less than 90 days after my accident, and that's the STEP system. So STEP is an acronym and it stands for support. You have to make sure that you have your support lined up right from the beginning. This is really going to have you falling back on relationships that you built prior to your setback. T is trust. You have to trust that once you take your first step, your next step is always going to be available to you, and you have to follow that. Um, this also is going to have you following that calling, if like that calling that we all have inside of ourselves. So the way I can relate to this is early on in my recovery, I can remember my parents talking with the doctors and strategizing, okay, we want to do everything we can so Nick's able to make a full recovery.
Yeah.
And I heard in my head, no, you're gonna run out of the hospital because they said we want him to walk out. I heard, no, you're gonna run out. So then that became our common goal. E of the step system is energy. You have to make sure that you maintain your energy, and maintaining your energy allows you to operate at the highest degree possible. So you're able to support and affect other people to the highest degree possible. And then P is persistence. So once you've taken your first step, keep getting up every day and taking your next step, no matter how small. So by continuing to move forward every day, you are building an unstoppable momentum.
Yeah.
And that's really actually just a 10,000 foot view of the step system. At the end, I can give the listeners a way they can download the whole system for free
Sure.
off of our website. So as I seeded in there or like mentioned in there, less than 90 days after my accident, I ran out of the hospital. And it really wasn't like I mean, the work wasn't done for me. I had to continue to go to outpatient therapy for another 6 months after I got home, along with being tutored all summer long, 5 days a week, in order to continue on to high school with the
Yeah.
rest of my classmates.
Remind me how old you were
I
roughly?
was 14.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, I was 14. And then it's a little surreal to me that only 18 months later, I got my start in real estate. And that was door knocking on pre-foreclosure doors or homeowners that have received the notice of default letter
Mm-hmm.
from the bank, meaning they had missed one, two, or three payments on their loans on their mortgage, and the bank still hadn't foreclosed. So I would go and knock on these doors and then schedule meetings for our investor to meet with them on the following weekend or the following week, excuse me, about potentially buying their home. This taught me
Okay.
so much about. I'm sorry, you were trying to say
No,
something?
I just want to have a question because you said like about 18 months after your accident, you started door knocking. How did that come about? Was it were you doing that for family, or how did that connection come about for you to even get started doing this?
That's a great question. So I grew up in my family that I grew up in, family real estate business.
Okay.
When I was little, my dad was a builder. Then he transitioned to being a realtor, then an investor, and then toggled between the two for several years. Did a little of both. So really, it was all I knew. And right around that time, where I was looking to get started, I was starting to read books, and the first book that got me interested in it was Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki.
Classic.
Um, so it's a lesser known one because the other one, the Rich Dad Poor Dad, is more famous. But I got so much out of that. So right around that time, um, the summer following my accident, so not 2003 but 2004, I came to my dad and I said, "Hey, I wanna like get started in real estate. I want to help. What can I do? What can I do to help?" And right around that time, they were playing with the idea of having someone, a bird dog, if you will,
Yep.
go and knock on these doors, and schedule meetings for the investor to meet with them about potentially buying their home. And it just fit that literally I was getting my license around this time. So although I couldn't drive with anyone else in the car, I could still do 50 to 70 doors in a day. So I
Yeah.
do that. I do that on the weekends, because I had to go to school during the week, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Um, and then
Okay,
if you
so you started as a bird dog on some foreclosure properties. How
pre-foreclosure, yeah.
yeah, pre-foreclosure. So how did that evolve?
That evolved. I did that throughout my career, I guess you could call it my high school career. And then after I graduated high school, I started studying to get my real estate license. And then I got my real estate license in the best time possible. I don't know if I can get a drum roll. Can I get a drum roll?
2008.
That's right. March 8th of 2008.
Yeah.
So I always like to say that when I didn't pass it on the first time. It took me 3 times to pass the test. When I was first in there, there was 27 people in the room taking the test with me. The second attempt, there was probably 10. And the third time when I passed it, there was one other person in the room taking the test with me.
It says something about the cycle.
Yeah, right.
Hmm.
But I did get it. And then full time for, I would say, 6 years, just helping buyers and sellers. And I didn't know any better. I didn't know any other markets. So that was all I knew. I
Yeah.
heard all these people lamenting about how it used to be so much easier, so much better. I didn't know what they meant. So I was able to make a living and really do pretty well during that time. In 2014, my dad approached me with the idea. He's like, as an investor, he was getting all these properties, buying all these properties creatively, without using bank financing or big investor loans or anything. Um, and around that time, he was starting to accumulate them, but he needed help with the marketing of the properties. So he asked me to help out. I said, "Yeah, I can do that right alongside being a realtor." Then my income over the next 13 to 14 months shifted, where I was making 80 or 90% of my income with him, in his business as an investor, and only maybe 10 or 20% as a realtor. So in January of 2016, I let my real estate license go and I joined him full time. Um, part of that on ramp, I guess you could call it, was over the years I developed a system, the buyer process, a particular process that we like to put all of our buyers through, so that when they get to the end of their agreement, they are able to get their own loan. We see success rates of 80 or 90%, up to 90% of our buyers that we set up on rent-to-own agreements get to the end of their agreement and
Okay.
are able to get their own loan. Whereas if you look at the industry average, Axel, it's the opposite of that. Only 10 or 20% of the rent-to-own buyers go forward and get their own loan. And that's because of the systems and the
Hmm.
processes that we have in place. And we now partner with our associates that we have all over the country to do these deals, and we're still doing them in the trenches every day.
Okay, so then I understand now where you said your income shifted and then you did a lot more working with your father. So those properties that were rent to own, was it the ones that you had sourced originally with the on the pre-foreclosure?
No, no, these are two different times. So that
Okay.
was the door knocking pre-foreclosure doors was 2005, 2006, 2007. This was after the crash. So this was
Okay.
back. This was he started up in at the end of 2013 and 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so then your father went and bought some single family homes, put a family in there on under a rent to own agreement, and had a step system to make sure that he was maximizing the likeliness of them being able to stay and purchase the house.
Yeah. All right, so he was getting all these properties under contract non-conventionally without getting bank financing or getting big investor loans. And then once he got it under contract, he needed help with the marketing, and that's where I came in. And
Okay.
then I worked, and it was really him and I together. We worked hand in hand with the buyers as they were getting set up to be in the home before we accepted them. And then after, when they were in the home, to really get them to a point where they'll be able to cash it out and get their own loan. I mean, really, if you look at it, would we have benefited for all the deals that our rent home buyers cashed us out and got their own loan? Would we have made a little bit more money if they left and weren't able to do it and then we sold conventionally on the market? Yeah, but we have an, I guess you'd call it an altruistic business model, altruistic view. We want to make sure, and we really think it's important to get the buyer to be successful and to get to the finish line, because then three people win. We win, the buyer wins, because I mean, most of the time they're walking into $60,000 to $80,000 on average worth of equity, and the seller wins. They're 100% cash out of the deal. So again, we kind of have a different mindset where we want the buyer to succeed.
Okay. Can you, because I know quite a few people actually who've done some rent to own here in Quebec. Can you kind of walk us through the system that you guys have developed to be able to make sure to maximize the chances of those tenants slash future owners?
Sure. So the first thing, you mentioned it. You said the tenants slash future owners. We refer to all of our rent home buyers. They're tenant buyers, but we refer to them as buyers. So right from the beginning, where our language and everything that we're doing, we're communicating with them, we're treating them as buyers. As such, they are responsible for all maintenance, repair, upkeep, any costs that are associated with the property. And that's over the course of their agreement. So if they have a leaky toilet, they're not calling us. No. If they have any little thing that's going on at the property, they're not calling us. They're taking over it and they're handling it 100%. The second thing is the down payment. So we require anywhere from our rent-to-own program, anywhere from 3 to 10%. Have we had buyers do significantly more than that over the years? Yeah, we have. It doesn't happen. I'm not going to paint the picture like that happens every day, but they are out there. And that does happen. And the only time that we have got into trouble is when we accepted less than 3% initially. So less than 3% down. We've never had success with that. So we want to turn over all responsibility for maintenance, repair, and upkeep over the course of the term. Have a down payment anywhere from 3 to 10%. The third thing, that's just as, if not more important, is we want to make sure that they can afford the home. Now
that they'll qualify for the loan.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really nice that you mentioned that, because our standards and the process that we put our buyers through is actually more strict than a lot of lenders. Yeah. So we're looking to make sure that they make at least 3 times what their total monthly payment is going to be, at least. What this equates to is we make sure that their debt to income ratio, or their housing payment to their income every month, is less than 33%. I've talked to a lot of lenders that they'll give loans up to 43%. Meaning that their housing payment is 43% of their income. So really, they get to the end of their agreement and the lender sees, hey, you put a down payment down initially, and then depending on the deal, you put additional down payments down over the course of your term. You've been living in the home, taking care of the home just like it was your own. And you make all this income. Why wouldn't we give you a loan?
Yeah. Yeah.
we just want to make it as easy, as no brainer,
Mm-hmm.
as possible.
And I find it's interesting that obviously you finish with the qualify for the loan, because I know a lot of people who do this, and they actually like provide the help to help them improve their credit rating. And one of the biggest factors, other than the credit, is really the mindset shift of going from being a tenant to an owner, even though you don't own yet. And it's as simple as you said, like properly maintaining the place, not leaving stuff laying around, maintaining the front yard, adding flowers for the street appeal, like small things like that, where it turns those people who used to be in a consumer mindset into an investor mindset and owner, where they're actually proud of the property and they maintain it, they take care of it. And that is one of the biggest, like the degree of buy-in on the mindset shift was one of the biggest determinant in the success rate.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I didn't mention, it's important to mention, the reason we know all these ratios and everything and like projected what their payments will be, we're getting them screened with a great credit enhancement company. And
Mm-hmm.
then if and when we do a deal and accept those buyers, one of the conditions of their agreement is they stay enrolled with the credit enhancement company until they're able to get their loan. So that's one of the key elements, the key components of our rent to own program is the credit enhancement.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so is that what all, enfin, is this all you're focusing on right now? Like, how many properties do you have that are in the transition rent to own?
Oh gosh, over the years, I mean, really back in, if you say back in 16, 17 timeframe, we had anywhere from 50 to 60 properties, but in our personal inventory.
Mm-hmm.
Then over the years, I think we're down to just in the little states that we operate, the 2 hour area that we operate, we're down to anywhere from 12 to 13 properties. However, now it's shifted. Now although that difference in all those properties, so like 13, 12 or 13 all the way up to 50 or 60, that difference in there is taken up by, now we're doing deals with associates all over the country that have buyers at different points in the rent home process, just like we've had over the years.
Yeah.
So we probably have, I couldn't put a pen to paper on this, but probably like 50 to 75 properties all over the country that are at one stage or another within the rent to own process.
Okay. Very interesting. And then as an organization, have you also shifted in terms of asset class, or do you only focus on that?
No, no, that's really our main focus, and that's,
Okay.
and like within that niche, within the creative financing niche, because there's only so just to illustrate, there's a few different ways we buy. Like, to be simple, rent to own is one. We'll buy it on a lease purchase. That's another term for rent to own. We'll close on the home, subject to someone's existing loan if there's financing in place, or if it's debt free. We can oftentimes pay a premium and close on the home and structure principal only payments.
Mm-hmm.
Then, however we're buying, we're always selling through our rent to own program. So
Okay.
within the rent to own niche, I can't say that word today, niche.
Niche. Yeah.
Um, the so my specialty is like, there's so many niches within niches. Like
Yeah.
it can get so deep. Like I'm specializing in working on selling the homes, like working with, hand in hand with the buyers, and then hand in hand with the investor and the buyer once they're in the home. So it can be so detailed, and I like to really focus on that so we get people to the finish line, rather
Yeah.
than for our sake focusing on all these different asset classes,
Mm-hmm.
where let's just stick to this and
Yeah.
maximize this.
Absolutely. And you got to pick one route and then go a mile deep. And I,
That's right.
I find there's a lot of value in this, and even from a I was going to say a societal point of view, because you're actually really helping families in need, and you're opening them the door to home ownership. And I find there's a lot of it's actually quite it's quite important. There's a lot of respect in that.
Absolutely. And
Mhm.
it's just like I said, it's an altruistic thing. We
Yeah.
like to have everyone be successful, because when our buyers are successful, everyone's successful.
Mhm.
And it just snowballs. You get the good reviews, you get the referrals, and it keeps getting better and keeps improving.
Absolutely. Okay. And if any of our listeners want to find out more about you and your company, what's the best way to reach out?
Sure, they can check out our website, which is smartrealestatecoach.com. And if they scroll down, they can get registered for our free master's class that's going to teach them all about our trademark 3 payday system. So get paid up to 3 times on a particular deal instead of just one time. And also a little bit about how we buy and sell on terms. Then I also have for your listeners today, I have a gift, a free book. So if they go to wickedsmartbooks.com/Axel3, they're able to get a free copy of one of our best-selling books, The New Rules of Real Estate Investing. And I'm a co-author on that, along with my dad and my brother-in-law, Zach. My dad is Chris, and my brother-in-law is Zach. So if anything, if anyone's out there that relates to my story and the step system and wants to learn more about the step system, they can actually go to my website and they can download the step system for free today. We only had a chance to cover like a 10,000-foot view of it.
Yeah.
However, if they want to download the whole step system for free, they can go to my website and download that. That's nickprefontaine.com/step. And that's going to teach them all about support, trust, energy, and persistence. And like I said, allow them to take that first step today.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And I encourage listeners to do that if they want to find out more about it. Nick, thank you very much for your contribution today. It's very appreciated, and it's good to hear. Well, I don't want to say it's good to hear about the trauma that you went through in your accidents, but what's really important and everyone can relate to is how you got up and, as you said, you ran out of the hospital, and that's a big lesson in life.
Oh, I appreciate that, Axel. And I just want to spread the word, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that today. I want to help more people.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming on today. And then for everyone who's listening, as usual, keep researching your market, keep getting educated, share this podcast with a friend who could benefit from it, and I'll talk to you next week. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.